No. Okay,
All right, this is February 26th. This is a continuation of our workshop for the planning and zoning codes. And with that, we'll just continue on where we were at. Starting with our single family R-1. Start at 151.040 code.
Yeah, so like I said, we left off with the R1s. After last week, basically the R1 defines low and medium density residential development standards, prioritizing neighborhood compatibility while allowing limited flexibility through conditional and accessory uses. We've got Marie online here. But so Marie, we're just getting started, just jumping into the other ones.
Start at page 1. There.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of your guys' time. Is there questions, comments, concerns, adjustments? Just like last time, this is kind of council's time to talk and
On the bottom of the control uses, I had a comment about the combined garage. Anything structure greater than 1,000 total combined carport. And anything after that requires a conditional use permit, is that right? That you guys discuss? On 151.042. The side yard was 8 feet. That's on either side, correct?
Correct.
So that's like similar to our 16, but we don't vary it like we do before.
correct.
Yeah, okay. So down to minimum lot size of 14,000 square feet. We talked about a little bit about this last week already. You know, in my comment, I guess is, to me, I think that's a little large to meet our density or a comprehensive plan. Based on we have a sewer system now, but I know that 14,000 square feet is it doesn't meet our plan from that standpoint. It also affects the number of houses that are on each street, which is a less I think I mentioned like 25 or 30% fewer homes in a mile of 10,000 versus 14. I think a 12,000 foot is would be more acceptable in my eyes versus 14. I know the steering committee, the last figure they saw was 10,000 square feet. And going into the August planning and zoning meeting, and that's when the discussion was when the meeting was over, it was at 12,000 feet. And then in the September meeting, the discussion continued and it ended up being at 14,000 square feet. And so my only comment is that the steering committee, I don't believe they really saw that number after the discussion of the 10,000. So that's one concern I have about the whole process. The other concern, or not concern, awareness is back in 2022. Stantec did a lot survey with the community. And I don't know if this was shared in the P&Z meeting, but they did a summary of the cities, I should say. Talks about the first page is just what the preliminary recommendation was. And down at the bottom was their suggested lot sizes to start discussion with 6,000 downtown, 8,000 intermediate areas, and there's a page at the very back that talks about the intermediate areas and 10,000 square outer areas. On the second page, this is something that we talked about, the opportunities there for lot splits and replatting. There's a suggestions over on the northwest side off of Seventh Street, Seventh Avenue. There's some pretty big lots. And if we were to do some inclusive lot with a street, a cul-de-sac on that lower right corner picture, those would be 12,000 square feet, typical for the sizes. And 12,000 is pretty, it's a good sized lot. It's probably yeah, 20%, 30% of an acre, maybe, is that right? On the next page, some of the cities they went to look at: Rochester, Pine Island, Rochester, Century Hills, which go by Century High School. Say average 12,000 to 22,000. Pine Island is 9 to 10,000. Rochester East and Northwest, they vary from 6,500 to 9,000. Northwest, which is the newer portions, is 7,000 to 10,000.
I guess the question that I have, Ryland, is if a lot of the residents here wanted to live in Rochester, they live in Rochester.
Mhm.
There's a reason why people like living in Orinoco.
Sure.
And it's what there is with the larger lots and the other things. And, you know, it's like, do we lose our city and what the city and the residents like to have just to turn around to find a way to pay for the sewer plants?
Mhm.
Okay, is that's what's shaking the dog, or is it the tail shaking the dog, or what do we really want to have? You know, and so I think that we have to keep in mind why the residents and why we live here. And it's not to be like everybody else that there is around. And I understand, and I see like what we were talking about at the end of the last meeting, you and I, over River Bend. Okay, of what's over there, but I think that what makes Orinoco is a uniqueness of what it is, and that should be one of the driving forces that there are to be able to maintain that and not lose sight of that.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, that was actually be my comment too, especially that last page that you just reviewed there, Ryland, talking about the 6,500 to 9,000, 7,000 to 10,000. Jim's point, with all due respect, I mean, that's why a lot of people moved out here, myself included. That was the reason we moved out of Rochester, was for the bigger lot, a little more land, a little more space. You know, and to a further extent, if we want to pile on Rochester, I think page prior to that even talked about lots of 22,000 square feet. Now, again, I know that was a portion or an area of town, but same time, we're kind of apples and oranges with Rochester and what's going on there. The risk of opening a can of worms. So the 14,000 we talked about in the P and Z, you brought that up, and that was kind of I think the basis of our discussion that night was the 10 to 12 looked at 14, because again, to Jim's point, kind of everything we discussed is that's why a lot of people moved out here. To a further extent, talking about, again, this is the can of worms, is, you know, the step downs. A lot of that came up, and a lot of that discussion came from the public hearing we had, where a lot of the people that were in there that were, and that's where we kind of came up with the idea again, whether that got lost in translation. Daniel, you and I had that discussion. That's where that idea came from, is the people that had property adjacent to any open lots that would be developed, is possibly incorporating a step down to honor some of those wishes from the residents that live in Orinoco. And that's kind of what we came. Now, I know that gets a little bit dicey, talking about what do you consider adjacent as a street? Is it a tree line? Is it whatever that is? I think that's something that could be worked through. And then if it's a percentage of what your current lot is, because everything varies, that's something, to me, I guess, like that it could be discussed. But again, I just want to put that back out there, that is something that is important to a fair number of people in the community itself. So.
Yeah, I was clear. That was, that message is clear, and I think we understand that, and the reason it does add you some uniqueness, but somehow we need to balance that with our comprehensive plan, the density.
The same comprehensive plan from 2006, is that?
It is, but it's the same, if you look at 2006, which I'm guessing everybody has, it talks about the sewer plant, and the sewer plant will require density. Throughout the whole comprehensive plan, it talks about that.
My question is, when you looked at that, report that there is from 2006. It didn't have in there the capabilities or the size of the sewer plant either. You know, and I know we need enough to be able to keep that plant operating, you know, where. You know, we were looking at a growth, the way I understood it, that the way the city was supposed to grow, and it was supposed to be a population of 3,000 by 2030. And we're at 2026 and we haven't had any developments, but again, looking, when you did that, nobody knew what the economy was gonna be. Nobody knew what was gonna happen with COVID and everything that's associated with that, and especially with the interest rates of what's going on, which I think are all a part of it, but you know, it's a matter of, that was done at that time for that, but I don't know if we looked at the size of the plant at that time versus when we got and started building the plant, and what was it, 2018 when you got the funding, or 2019?
It's 2020, but the visibility plan is planned for 2030. And that's what phase A wanted.
And we're not gonna hit that no matter what. I mean, it's like if we start right now with construction. Just for doing a little bit, it's gonna be 2 years before you know, and it's not gonna be close to where we're at. I just, you know, the bottom line is I wanna still maintain what we have for Orinoco, which makes Orinoco very unique in itself, where it sits here. And it's the community that has the larger lot sizes. And I think the last report that was done by CETA turned around, and the majority of the people that were here, you know, as residents, agreed with that as well, that that's what we want to have, is a country style living and that type of a situation. So, just questions, just comments.
Yeah, no, you know, if you look at this page here too, and I like to hear Barry and comments as well. You know, the 12,000 is still a very respectable size. You know, I think that's what would fit with the uniqueness compared to the other cities. You know, 20,000 is it's huge. I agree that, but at the same time, we need to think of developers and the cost of putting in homes now compared to even 10, 15 years ago. It's substantially more, and that's why you see like River Bend. River Bend's a classic example of 100-foot width lots. And a lot of those are 12 to 13,000 square feet. Especially probably half a dozen of them or more that are that square footage before it drops off the hill, so it's usable space. And that developer did a great job of working with 100-foot fronts. And I just feel like they're all $600,000-700,000 homes. They complement everybody with Riverwood Hills, which was a concern during our public hearing. They were concerned about the small lots is going to reduce their home values, and looking back now, it complements everything too.
I think though, regardless of size, right? If you think about homes and trying to sell your home and buy a home, you're in the 400, 500, 600,000 easy for even starter homes. So again, I agree with Jim and even Grant. I think if we think about new residents coming in, they're not coming in because we have a water and sewer treatment plant, even today. I mean, that's a nice to have, and they feel like that's infrastructure that's needed, but that's not their selling point of why they're coming in.
I had just two things. One is a comment, one is a question, I guess. Just to what Jim was saying about not being on target for 2030 with P1B. As far as what I've read in the information that we have available, and then the voting to approve and move forward with P1B at the December City Council meeting, we will be and are on track for 2030. So we're not gonna, I don't think we're gonna blow that timeline for phase 1B. I just wanted to comment that. And then I had a question, like, I know I live here too, and I know we're talking a lot about lot sizes and if the sewer facility is driving this conversation, right? Are we driving the conversation about lot sizes and density because of it? So I would just question, I mean, why? These conversations must have been had by council when they approved the wastewater facility.
Right.
They had to have known, there had to have been statistics when the facility was approved that density and development was going to have to happen for the project and for the city to be profitable in every aspect. I mean, not just to pay for the facility, but to grow and stuff. So I'm just curious if we can find, for some of us that were not around during that time when those conversations were taking place, if we can get more background about what was the discussion by council when they moved forward with the treatment facility and what were the statistics that were provided at that time. Because we clearly approved them and moved forward with them.
I would like
So-
to see that same thing of what was really done at that time. Because none of us were aware of it or a part of it. The only one that was you, Ryland, and Joe Palin. You were the only two that have that. So yeah, I would like to have that information. I think it'd be very helpful.
Sure, and that if we talked about it with the cash flow analysis, because we had Mike Babani do a multi-year, starting with our 500 units with cost of the plant. If you, and Jason has seen it as well and worked with it too. There is, Mike took a very conservative approach of 10 units per year and looking at what our expenses were going to be, the revenue from the sales, and also how much from the CIP that we were going to have to put into to subsidize that into the homes were there to support the treatment plant. And that's a very clear black and white picture of what we want. We need the growth. And
But it's 10 a year.
what's that?
10 a year.
That was the estimate. I don't think there was anything I've seen. I don't think there was any, correct me if I'm wrong, but from everything I've seen, there wasn't anything to dictate like the future size of lots or houses or things like that. It was just the number of properties, the number of connections is what they looked at. Because that's connections equals X amount of dollars, which equals
Right.
coverage of that. Now, obviously, smaller properties equals the potential for more connections. And I'll speak from my experience working in City Hall. I have had a handful of residents that have come in wanting smaller sizes. I would say between 10 to 12,000, because there's a lot where they talk about where they have 20,000 square foot lots, they want to divide in half. I don't care either way. This is council's decision, but we do have residents that come in that talk to us staff and tell us this. They're not always the ones that come to meetings. They're not always the ones that are most vocal online, but we do have residents come in as well as an aging population, senior population. I think that was noted within the housing study that was referenced. I was just looking at that way while we're talking. They talked about, being able to transition out of their residence, which may be in a bigger property, if you will, to a smaller property. All things to consider as you move forward making decisions. So
The other thing too to consider with that was, demographics that there are associated with that in Orinoco, the aging community, people over 65 is 10%. Most of the development and the growth that you have are younger families and people with kids because of what you've got with the school systems. And so the smaller places we've got a couple in the one that's under construction right now. Understand that and I think that there's places for that. And if you look downtown too, there's some few houses that are for sale down here too that have smaller lots that are available for people that are aging community if it wants to be that way. Again, it's I see and I'm just looking at the report that came back that 90% of the people that there are in this community are young and have families. That's where it is, and those kids like to play and they like to have a little bit of room that there is. And again, I think it's what makes Orinoco unique by itself is that fact.
Yeah, there's first of all, the 2030 date, and this is what when MPCA talked to us in 2015, Stantec did an engineering survey of downtown Orinoco, and for these lots, 75% of them were non-compliant. And so MPCA agreed between 2015 and 2020, we will not enforce any penalties on your individual septic systems. I had a couple residents tell me they don't walk through their yard anymore because they're spongy. It's because they're that as bad as they were.
Mhm.
And you can maybe hear Joe would have told you the same story. So the idea of the 2020 date, and this is the same thing for the 2030 date, is that yes, we got funding in November of 2020, $25 million, $31 million. So this 2030 date is not a build date. It's just to indicate that you've got funding to start in completion of your phase 1B. So it'll be the same type of thing. If we get bonding bill money in 28, 29, or even 2030, it's like we did in 2020, we would have met MPCA's requirements and commitment that we as a city were going to build. So the 2030 date is a good date, but that's kind of our goal. But it's strictly from a financing and not to have homes completed and new lift station and lines put in place. If we get, that's great, but the funding is an issue for 2030. And I think that's a goal. And now that we had our water and sewer meeting earlier this month, and the 12 million that we thought was going to take care of it is now, just because of the estimates of started getting estimates for supplies, and is 21 million. So where we thought we were going to use point source implementation grants, we're going to have to go back and get bonding bill money and get involved with the yearly bonding bill process. So that will take some work to make happen, but that's okay, because we've done phase 1A, taking care of 500 units. We've got this balance. We've got a new treatment plant. So we have MPCA telling us, so there's a lot of carrots out there to help us get the funding. So the reason I'm showing this to you, because this is what, back in 2022, that's when we were concerned about the density and the lot sizes, how we can improve the density. So Stantec put this together, and that was, if you look at the very first page of the recommendations, talk about Whackensack, like lot sizes, set the densest standards you're comfortable with. The cost of maintaining infrastructure is related to lot frontage. Smaller lots cost less. As cities develop, they always get more dense, not less. And on the very back page, I should say on page 2, part of that density was looking at how we could do it inclusively. And that's where they came in with these lots that Joe or Stantec Engineering put together and said, if you do these streets, you can have X number of, I don't know if there's a number here or not, but it looks like there's maybe a dozen or more lots. 12,000 feet is a typical lot, so that's all very respectable size lots. On the back page, just to reemphasize, part of this planning for the future land use map was to look at historic lots downtown, intermediate sized lots near downtown, which is, today we know River Park, they're all the big, but that also has empty lot of 43 acres. And then the larger sizes on the outside. So there was some intent and planning done back in 2022. And I think this is a great opportunity to keep this in mind of our density and going forward with our comprehensive plan. And if you write a new comprehensive plan, density will be part of that as well.
Daniel, even in
So
First, I guess the first thing I want to add is, mentioned that we have to take into consideration our developers, and I think that is not our responsibility. Our responsibility are the people who elected us, the residents, not the developers. The developers will find a way to make their money, and whether it's more money or less money, based off of what we decide. Our main focus should be what our residents want, not what the developers want. So I'm putting that forward first. As I'm looking at this map back here, you've got River Park and Cedar Woodlands as intermediate lot sizes. And so that would justify to me that the one developable lot that we have available would be intermediate lot sizes close to what are in River Park and Cedar Woodlands. So, I mean, so right there, I think that even if we kept it at 20,000 square feet, we would be meeting this map here. But I think we have to talk about how we're going to protect the lots that are currently built and lived in before we get into minimum lot sizes. Whether it be the step down zone, a specific step down zone or a buffer zone or something written into R1 about step downs or a third zoning district for residential. I think that's all conversations that we should probably be having before we approach the minimum lot size. Because I think we could go down to 10,000 square feet with the proper protections of the current residents. But if we're not going to write that in, then we should keep it high.
Can I ask you a question? Okay. What's your lot size that you've got over there at your house right now and yours, Brandon? You know what your lot size is?
It's about 0.9 acres, I think.
Mine's just over 1.
So you're looking at that area and the people that bought into that area. But because of that size of lot that was associated with that. And to me, I think that you'd like to keep that the same of what there is for the value for where you're at. And also for, if, you know, because you've got the drain field that's over there, but you like to keep that same relatively larger lot size that there is. And that makes sense. It really does. I mean, that's where I'm looking more at the other. I mean, you're looking at on this map here of the larger lot sizes that are actually south of 100, then nothing has been developed in that area at all during this time of the land map. You know, so I mean, it's, and I know when Stantec did this, okay, they're very much aware of that. And that's when we were looking at the historic downtown and what we were doing with that. Again, I go back to what makes Orinoco, and where our residents are at and what their thought plan is of their thoughts.
Yeah, I think the growth is going to happen, hopefully. It hasn't grown too much in the last 2 years, but we got a lot of plans, I guess. But I think that, just to look at Cedar Woodlands or to River Park, 2005, 2004. I don't know, I've never talked with Mr. Jack about his rationale for why he did the lots, but I'm guessing he thought the lots would be nice and they probably paid for his ability to develop that drain field. Okay, he didn't put in 10,000 lots because he knew he had to get that kind of resource back to build a drain field. I'm guessing he built to see if 85 lots, if I do this, 85 lots can give me this 8-acre site. I think it's 8 acres for the drain field. So there was some planning on his sizing of lots. Well, I like to think he was thinking that in my argument here, but that's the point being that he designed the lot for what the property he had. On a much bigger scale, we're looking at it right now too, because we've got a brand new $45 million sewer system that we need to have houses to help pay for. That's a given. And we're looking at phase 1B, and those lots over there are huger than anything we've done so far. So here we have those people that are gonna have to help support us, and we need those users. But at the same time, we also need to look at more inclusive potential for just getting more, and that's what the cash value hash value analysis shows that we can, it's very, I don't know why we can't make that available, but that would help tell the story of the need for density.
I know at one time too, and going back a couple of years ago. Oak Meadows or Orinoco Estates, whatever you want to call it at that time. They were going to double the size of that and put those up against that field that there was over there next to where the sewer plant was. You know, they were going.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so they were gonna put in like 200 units that there were. I mean, if that happened, that would be the answer to what there is for getting the users to be able to take care of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's again, these are things that have been up in the air and different things that we're in. I just don't wanna let the sewer plant be the determining factor of what the city's gonna be. You know, so again, what's wagging the dog? Is it the tail or is it the dog? And, you know, I just look at the residents that there are in the town and I have to listen to what they have to say.
It's kind of hard to have the one without the other.
And I think that there could be other options that would be available. We haven't looked at on different things and they haven't been discussed. And, you know, to take a look at ways to pay for that plant that there is. And again, it's one of those things that I don't think that this is the time right now, but on a private conversation, I'd love to sit down and talk to you about that for options that might be there that might be able to satisfy everything that we're looking at right now.
Looking at the replat concept here, what immediately strikes me is, that does create density. But what happens when half of the people want that to happen and half of the people don't want that to happen?
It doesn't happen. It's an
So,
all or nothing kind of thing.
so it's an all or nothing kind of thing. But if house one wants to add 4 additional lots, they could still potentially put a road back there and put lots, and it wouldn't matter the rest of the houses.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. So I think where, this is going back to one of your initial comments of the steering committee started at 10, P and Z raised it to 12 and then to 14, which I believe was part of the process. And correctly part of the process, because the steering committee recommends to P and Z recommends to council. So P and Z increased it to 14 to prevent exactly this scenario from happening without having to go through a variance situation to get that to happen. That would give everybody in the surrounding area understanding that somebody was trying to split their lots and put houses and
Well, you know, it's all a personal choice. You know, we can't propose this without some acceptance from the lot owners that they want to split their lot.
correct. But
It's not a-
if one of them
not a
wants to
mandate.
do it, and it makes sense, without building extra infrastructure, and we have a minimum lot size, what's keeping them from splitting the lot and being able to add a house that kind of doesn't fit into the neighborhood? One house. So that's why the biggest reason why P and Z increased it was to keep the lot splits in the future to a minimum. Just random lot splits and building new houses. But I think honestly, we probably could go down to a lower square footage if we had protection for the homes that currently exist.
Can I have a question off of that for Evan? Is there a way to, I don't know, put up a sentence or paragraph in here that talks about newer houses are held to this standard, but anything with lot splits would have to meet a You know, a current property as of this date would have to meet a size of this proportion, 14,000 square foot. Whereas a new minimum, you know, anything new build after this date would have to meet 12,000 square feet type of thing, kind of.
Existing or something.
Yeah, where
wording.
it's, so it kind of focuses on allowing the newer development, but you get those residential areas where they would have a higher standard if they wanted that lot split to help keep the continuity of the neighborhood. Is that what you're we're getting at? And I know that's not quite talking about the buffer zone you're talking about
Right.
either, but that specific area, something like that though, is that done? Is that something that could be done?
I think to get to your end goal, there's ways that we could do that. I don't know if there's necessarily a perfect way or one single way, but there's, I think, a way that we could come up with. If you have an existing lot and say it's, you know, an acre, 2 acres, and you want to split it, would that be acceptable to you guys in already developed areas? You know, they're not putting in new streets, they're just putting in a new house. Obviously, that add another connection. But that'd be one thing of, you could add, you know, density for existing areas where people just have, you know, a very large yard. They're able to sell it off. They have the, you know, ability to maybe generate additional income, you know, have a relative child move on that lot. But maybe for some of your other areas on the edge of town where you don't have that development already, maybe you would have those larger lot size requirements, whether it's, you know, 12, 14, whatever you want to have, you could have that set as your zoning now. And if, say, for whatever reason, someone wants to develop it, they could come request from you guys, whether that's through that development flex zone, a smaller lot, or maybe they say, hey, we want to mimic a development similar to what you have downtown, so we'd like to rezone to R2. Or to Dan's point, maybe there's a third zone that's, you know, the smallest lot size, and maybe we'd have the downtown area here as that smallest lot size. And as we keep going out, maybe we have larger lot sizes. So I think that might be one way we could get to your kind of end goal of balancing both the needs of existing development while also kind of setting the expectation that larger development, or new development, I should say, should be larger unless you guys grant some sort of approval for a variation from that. So
Go ahead, Bree.
I was gonna say, if we do that, I would propose that we are pretty transparent of where those areas are on that land use map, so that we don't get into maybe difference of opinions of what's existing and where some of those smaller lots. So again, having that clear for residents to know, I think that's gonna be important to have that land use map identify where maybe some of those smaller lots could go or should go, compared to some of the buffer zone or even the bigger lots.
yeah, so I guess my thought initially, kind of based on your discussions, is, you know, going off of this map from the 2022 report, that downtown area, if you will, that would be maybe this new zone of the smallest lot size that you guys come up with for minimum lot size. And your intermediate areas would be maybe your current R2 zone, that's 10,000 right now. And then your areas that are labeled larger lot sizes, maybe that would be your largest. And so whether that's 12, 14, whatever you guys want to come up with, maybe that would be one way to delineate that. Does that kind of make sense or sound good?
Let's create.
What's your initial?
Creating a new zone
Correct.
to dictate the step downs from the existing stuff.
Well, I think that would address some of your density issues in your existing parts too. And then there could be something else in your R1 zone of, you might be allowed to, if you have an existing lot, you could rezone to R2, split it if you want. So say you have an acre lot, you want to split it into 2 lots that are 20,000 square feet or 15,000 square feet, you could rezone to R2. That'd be allowed to split. But maybe go into Jason's question of maybe there'd be some sort of requirement if you're creating, you know, 4 more lots, so a larger subdivision, if you will, maybe there'd be some sort of buffer requirement from some of your existing lots. Maybe that'd be a way to kind of address the step down or buffer protection from some of your existing developments.
It's generally the accepted definition of like a simple lot split versus moving into actually needing to follow a development path.
Yeah, so typically most communities, when you have your subdivision code, is you'll have kind of two paths to creating a subdivision. One would be a minor subdivision, so that's typically one where you're not putting any streets, you're not, extending, a cul-de-sac or anything. You already have the access, you're basically splitting a lot into two lots, or if you have a big enough piece of land, maybe you're splitting it into 3 lots. Sometimes some communities do 4, but typically your threshold is pretty low. If you're going above that, as well as if you're putting in actual new streets, that's what would be called typically a major subdivision. And so maybe that would be the trigger of, if you're doing a major subdivision, we would want that buffer included, but if you have an existing lot, you already have the frontage, you're just adding lines and reducing yards from a large yard to 2 houses, maybe that's where that'd be acceptable as a minor subdivision where we don't necessarily need a buffer or request a buffer.
We've had 2 of those that are done in town right now, Daniel. And we did it as a lot split, and that's one that's under construction on your side going over there, and the other one that there is up here. And those have worked out well, the way that's been done, but they came and asked and it made sense and I think it's working, okay, for what there is, so.
So to follow up, the Orinoco is kind of unique in that we have basically 3 subdivisions.
Mhm.
Riverwood Hills, Cedar Woodlands, River Park. And just like what Ari was trying to do over in Cedar Woodlands, he agreed to put in comparable homes across the street. There's 5 lots, I think,
I don't remember what.
5 or 6 lots, but they complemented the house across. So is there a way we can word it such that if you're building across the street from Riverwood Hills, Cedar Woodlands, and River Park, that those first row of houses have to be a minimum of 14,000 square feet? And then use everything beyond that, drop down to 10,000 or 12,000. That would help with the transition across the street,
Mhm.
like what Ari was trying to do. And,
Then I think you're putting people on the west side up for maybe a difference of lifestyles then.
What do you mean?
So if you're saying within River Park and Cedar Woodlands, you would have the expectation of that step down, but everyone else, if you wanted lots on that west side, right off 100th Street, again, if that, you're saying those would be smaller, I don't know, again, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that homes butt up against that. I don't think they'd be happy about that.
Yeah, Marie, I don't think we would be able to call out specific subdivisions. It would have to be a more general, so I don't know if that would necessarily be an issue. It would have to be worded in a way that talks about, if it abuts a subdivision, it's gotta meet certain standards as they're, directly adjacent to.
Is there a way to add like a R1A on our?
You can create as many zones as you want, so that is one way, I think, to maybe get to the end goal of what you want.
I'm just thinking to color the future use map and say, within 300 feet of this area, this is actually contingent to the original R1 standards before this was adopted, or coloring the back end of the west side that's gonna be up against that field. And putting that in as, I mean, that's basically creating a step down zone within a zone, right? But it's putting it on the future use land map, calling it out
Yeah.
and saying, these are the areas that are beholden to this specific rule. And I would think that anything built after this would not be added into that, but, that's where, what I'm thinking is, I just don't know what the easiest thing to do.
I think that would probably be the easiest path to go down instead of having a bunch of different loopholes and various criteria to meet. I think maybe specific areas of town that are designated certain zones and then tying that zone to a certain lot size, but I think it's really more picking and choosing, it seems like, where you guys would find development acceptable, where the existing landowners would find development acceptable, but leaving some of your undeveloped areas maybe open for the potential to have a development flex or some sort of maybe different type of development we already have.
So Daniel, I kind of like that where you're actually trying to set those boundaries of up downs, because that's obviously been a topic of discussion. It's something I've brought up a few times. The one question I do have is, Ryland, you went back to that, mentioned a few times the 10,000 square foot minimum. With that 14,000 square feet, I thought that was the whole premise of the development flex is, again, because this feels like we're going back to working with the developers, catering to them a little bit toward that 10,000 square foot lot. Obviously, I get the septic fields in there, the septic plants in there. With that 14,000 square foot minimum, having that development flex still allows that option to come in with the 10,000 square foot lots. So again, it's not setting that minimum, but that's still an option at some point if that's what is pursued.
Allows him to do.
Yes, exactly. So I guess to bump that down based on all the discussions we've had. I mean, like I said, that 14,000 is how we came up with that P and Z. So just calling that out.
And the flex is great. I agree with what you're
I
saying.
guess,
and
yeah,
that's the purpose.
That's the purpose of it being in there. And I guess the other piece too, I just want to make mention of this is earlier you mentioned improving density. That's open to interpretation depending on who you're talking to, because again, there's a lot of people, taxpayers, just current residents, that their idea of improved density is probably completely different than 10,000 square foot lots. So I just want to make mention of that too.
No, that's a good point, because it can be taken right both ways.
Depending on depending on who you're talking to, there's a different definition for it, so.
Okay, so, I like the idea that we use as a takeaway to have them get back to us with some.
So we wanna keep the 14,000 square foot with the understanding that Vex flex development is ideal for those certain areas, while now incorporating a new type of buffer zone against existing R1 areas.
And additional new zones.
So.
Which would be, that's what he's saying.
Everything against
I
the.
think you're gonna point out something, was that?
Yeah, so would it be easier to just say current development is, or current build is R1? Then we're moving into, say, R1 to 2026, whatever.
RA or
Yeah,
whatever that there is, make it simple.
But, so say, cause here's, we'll just use my lot, for example. I own on three road fronts at the beginning of a river park, right? We drop it down to 10,000 square feet. I can split my lot and put 3 more houses on my lot. I have enough space. I could do that. So would it be best to just encompass my lot, all of existing lots in this original R1, so that in the future, if I sell my lot and the next owner, well, this isn't part of that buffer zone that you've called out, I want to split my lot and I want to build 3 or 4 houses. Would it be better to just encompass the larger lot neighborhoods right now, call them what they are, give them the buffer across the street or next to, and then create that next zone? And that's what we're gonna be moving forward with as our R2, I guess. I don't know what would be the
Well, it
best.
wouldn't be an R2 because that would be multi, but,
I think the residents that's basically what they're saying is like preservation of their neighborhood,
Correct,
preservation of their current.
correct.
so, yeah, so we're keeping everything. So you better like those people that you're gonna build 3 lots or 3 houses next to, okay? But, I think keeping with what there is, which is the way the community is right now, okay? And it's the same thing with your neighbors, Ryland. I know it is with mine, that they like to have what it is, and that's where they were at, but have that protection, that's where that stays at. To be able to have that look and the appeal that there is. So,
Split your lots and be a rich guy.
Yeah, I had a buddy come from Las Vegas and he was like, there would be 20 houses on your lot in Las Vegas. they would have a 8 foot wall between them.
Well, that's California too, okay, it's 5 foot rule that there is, up you go.
But- But I guess that would be my only concern with just like giving the buffer and not including what's already there, because there are a few lots, River Park, specifically the 3 houses that own from Fifth to Sixth Street, Cedar Woodlands, who own basically from, you know, all, yeah, Woodlands to Cedar Drive. I mean, there's 3 houses there that could still potentially ownership changes and they wanna do it, then they're going against everything that we're working for right now. So including all of those existing lots within Cedar Woodlands, River Park, and Riverwood Hills. And especially that back south edge on those fields of Riverwood Hills
Why?
that's not cut off by the river, right? Those houses need protected just like the other houses do. That's just my personal opinion.
I'm sure they would agree with you.
Use a grandfather type setup that there is this grandfather, that's what it would be.
Yeah, I'm good for the easiest and the easiest wording, the easiest change of what we've already got written. If it's just adding.
Yeah, I think we could come up with maybe an option or two for you guys to mull over and see, you know, what makes sense to you guys. And hopefully from there, we can kind of use that as the way to both allow, you know, people to put their lot, if they do have a lot of land, but at the same time, what you guys have been talking about, how do we balance, you know, new development with existing development, so.
One quick question, Daniel. Sorry, Marie, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think, you know, I agree of having another zone. I think it's gonna be important that we put it on that land use map so that people can anticipate it. I've heard many of times they don't know how we're gonna get density and how we're gonna grow, and being able to have some of those conversations as we put it on the map is gonna make it a little more tangible for people that it's gonna impact versus it's in our zoning. We don't really know how and where it goes. I think that's gonna be an important piece to have a visual that's gonna support that and to be able to be transparent back to our residents.
Yeah, I think whatever we come up with for a plan moving forward, we definitely wanna update that map, cause obviously that's the easiest way to visually know, hey, this is, you know, what my zone is, or the zone that I'm within, what is my neighbor's lot zoned as? And obviously, if someone wants to request a change, you know, they can visually see what's going on, and what's being proposed, so. Sound good?
You had a question?
I do have one other question for clarity. So on that buffer zone that you mentioned, so again, using our example where rather than you mentioned where they were looking at those 5 lots across from our houses for Ari, what Ari was working on. What is the definition for that buffer zone then? Is it percentage of a lot that's adjacent, or is it the current, what those were zoned as? I guess that's the clarity I would look for too.
I think, I would have a hard time not arguing for keeping it what it would be zoned as currently.
So 20,000.
Yeah, to increase it.
I'm not proposing increasing it. I think, like I said, and this is going back to my, whether it was misinterpretation from P and Z, but that was kind of the way I took it was that buffer, what we're now calling it,
Yeah.
was 20, and then the minimum lot size was 14 with the development flex option if a developer wanted to do smaller lots for consideration, I guess.
Yeah, so 20 would still put it at half-acre lots approximately. I would have a hard time arguing that it should be more than that, than what it currently is zoned going up from it, just because the developer chose to put in a 2 or 3 acre lot somewhere. It would be hard to force somebody in the future to then have to put in a 1.5 and then a 3/4 and then you know, it would be hard for me to justify that. But I think keeping it as what it currently is, makes sense to me.
Yeah, agreed, and I think that was kind of the basis of our, not want to say argument, it kind of was, but where our stance was with that project that was being looked at out there was that people moved out there knowing that this could be developed, but it was those 20,000 square foot lots, so at least it gives a little bit of a buffer, using your terminology, and then the new 14,000 foot lots. The flex option.
And 20,000 is 0.46 acres, 14,000 is 0.32 acres. Slide it down. Okay, so Evan, do you have your direction,
I think so.
enough clarification?
This meeting's being recorded, so I can definitely go back and watch the recording if needed. Yeah. Mel's got it.
I'll get you
all,
some
so-
nice minutes like I did last time.
Okay, great. It was a good discussion, so it was needed, so. Should I move on?
Anything else in the R1? And we can move past lot size stuff in that initial talk.
On page, second to the last paragraph on page 4 of R1. Talks about the required all front yards, rear yards, side yards be sodded over a minimum of 4 inches of black dirt. All trees shall meet the city's residential tree planting requirements, but more or less, I think the putting, and maybe the 4 inches is very common to put around a house, but to have it sodded, I think is quite an expense. Maybe sod the front and the sides or something like that, all 4 sides is. It seems like it's a little extreme. What's that?
Sounds like 2 more inches of black dirt than we had when we got our.
Now you're halfway.
It would have been, yeah.
We don't go in clay, so.
Yeah, that's exactly it, you know.
When they dug the lift station, that's probably where they put all the black dirt, because I looked down in that hole and it's like 13 feet of black dirt.
Pure limestone.
Yes.
I dig this far and I hit a rock. The sodding, that was something that I thought that was a little excessive to do, especially with these larger lots. As far as an R1 goes, I think people should have the option of hydro seed or just traditional seeding. I think that's reasonable to.
I think what we're trying to do is to make sure when they build that they finish the yard and it just isn't left for weeds.
Yeah,
Okay, and believe me, weeds grow really well around that.
Yeah.
It's the word shall that gets me.
So I would-
So what page are you on that one? I'm trying.
Page 4, the R1, number 14.
Page 4.
Yeah, and I don't know if the word sodded in this case was meant to be like turf establishment.
Or
I
seeded.
think that's probably the idea of what
Actually import and lay sod on a lot of it. I mean, even a 10,000 square foot lot is a lot of sod. I mean, that's,
Never done that.
yeah, but me too.
So if we say, sodded or seeded,
Say turf establishment, something along those
because
lines.
there's a lot of people that don't like sod for various reasons, and they have their yard seeded. Look great. They look better than mine sometimes when mine's sod, but there's come greener than before mine does.
Jason, a question for you. You guys have a nuisance ordinance. Does that cover weeds or is that a separate ordinance? So typically, yeah, so typically you guys probably have some sort of way to regulate weeds and so.
Yeah.
I don't know if we necessarily need to get into the specifics of how much dirt, so I don't think we wanna go out there with a rule and say, well, you're at 3.5, we're gonna fine you for not having enough dirt, but. I think the intent, it sounds like, is we don't want weeds and
Yeah,
gravel.
Established turf
Yeah.
is what we,
I'd like to think that's everyone's desire too.
Yes.
Have a nice house and
Yeah.
thistles growing around it.
Can I ask on that second section or sentence of that where it says each lot shall contain one front yard tree meeting minimum size requirements? Again, if you think about R1, how many of those lots don't have trees today? I mean, I don't know. And again, how would you enforce that? There's many that I see that are in R1 that don't have a front yard tree.
I think that was put in to, for future developments to put them in.
It
Not-
doesn't say that though. I mean, cause this you could go around and say, well, you don't have a tree, you're getting fined because you don't have a tree. I mean, it doesn't say for future development only.
Well, yeah, but we've got something as a grandfather clause too, okay? And so that would be new developments from this point going forward. The rest of it would be grandfather.
Yeah, most, when it comes to zoning code stuff like this, most of it's considered that depending on when your property was built, it gets grandfathered in under the code that it's in, no matter things moving forward, is my understanding.
Yeah, and maybe it'd be good to specify new lots have to provide the trees, but obviously if you're an existing lot, we're not gonna go name each one and say you have to put in a tree now, you have to put in a tree now, so. Unless you guys want to do that.
We would just put each new lot.
Yeah, newly developed,
Yeah.
or newly subdivided.
2 words, that's easy enough.
So do we leave it shall or say shall, but just add in the case of the sod / seeded, turf seeded?
It sounds
I
like
just
you'd
wanna-
rather have something along the lines of a yard shall be landscaped. And be in accordance with your weed ordinance, and then any newly created or subdivided lot would have to provide trees in accordance with that section that it refers to, which is the tree landscaping section.
That's, I agree with that.
That's,
I don't know that the 4 inches of black dirt is required to be in there, but
You grow a whole lot better out
I like
here.
that approach, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, some lots definitely have better dirt than others, but.
Wanna let Paul in?
Did you get that, Mel?
Yep.
Do you remember why that 4 inches of black dirt is?
I think that she was just looking at what the standards were around when it was there, and so it just kind of how that got started.
Going to R2.
I'm not going around with a ruler to measure people.
No.
So,
Well, Ryland's the weed enforcer. Can he be the dirt enforcer too?
I haven't posted, you know.
We might have to talk about we might like have to talk about what your role is if we get a cannabis. If you're still the weed inspector.
No more than 6 plants,
That's right,
right?
I've been trying to work myself out of the job.
all right, anything else with the R1 before we move into R2 here?
Um,
Okay, Paul, welcome. We're just finishing up R1. I don't know if you can hear me. But
The only other thing I was seeing in R1 was I feel like there was a garage code in here somewhere that. Yeah,
It's on page 57.
I got R1, page 1. Combined garage carport greater than 1,000 feet. And up to 1,200 square feet.
Marie, what section of the code are you referencing?
She's saying page 57.
She said.
I'm on 57. It's under oh, sorry, that's R2. Never mind.
Oh,
151,041 is the R1 section he's talking about under C and conditional uses. Talks about combined total garage, carport, accessory structure greater than 1,000 feet and up to 1,200 feet.
you meant 151, right? There is no 141, is there? Oh, 41. Yeah, okay.
Are the 151.046 permitted uses?
Two, we're still in R one.
What is the comment about 0.041 for conditional use and carports?
That was the garages.
I know, are we
I
having
feel
a
like that's
conversation?
But I feel like that's a little bit restrictive on some of these houses, cause if you look out at some of the houses that are being built, that they're, I mean, they're houses that are being built with 4-car garages that I would swear that those are attached and they're over that conditional use already, and then if they want a shed in their backyard, that they have to apply for a variance. Even though they might be sitting on a large lot that I think in our old code, it was part of a percentage of your lot size was based on what you could have as garage space. I think where it gets tricky is that the old code didn't necessarily, the way I read it, it didn't necessarily include what was attached to the house. Where the new code is including what's attached to the house. So it's almost cutting down.
You gotta look too, that we're reducing sizes as you're
Right.
doing this. So, and, you know, again, somebody wants to put in a 4-car garage, you know, and I wish I had one, but if somebody wants to do it, then you can come in and ask for a variance. Is no big deal to come in and explain you want to have a variance, and it doesn't disrupt what there is with the neighborhood and the rest of it, that you can still do that, you know, so I think of it as looking at the smaller lots that you want to be a little bit more cautious on the size of the lot, what you're putting in.
I guess I can accept that. It's just like for some of these larger lots that would like additional garages moving forward, they would still have to come in for a variance.
Yeah, but that's not a big deal, and we do those, so, and I don't think you're gonna have that many, I don't think it's gonna be, everybody that builds is gonna be that situation.
I guess, do you want to have those variances come to, or do you just wanna permit them?
Well, I just, you know, I think that P and Z is there for a reason off of that stuff, and you're gonna be with that going to the 300 feet rule that there is with the neighbors that are gonna be around, which is the right way to do it, you know, off of that, because the neighbors are gonna have to look at it.
Mm.
You know, and if it's okay to them, but I think it'd be good.
So I guess my concern is historically, the variances haven't been treated equally. So there are houses that have been specifically on the east side who've been denied variances for additional garage spaces, where houses on the west side have been granted.
Interesting,
And so-
I'd like to have some
and I don't-
specifics on that, I would, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because again, there's pre-existing, which is different, because when I turned around, I looked at Fitzpatrick and I'm looking at the number of people that have 2 garages over there, which are 2 2s or a 3 and a 2.
Yeah.
It's like, how did you do it? And it was like, well, Fitzpatrick said, this is what we wanted, and I wanted to sell a lot, so he said, okay, fine, this is what was going on. You know, but it isn't something that you see now that's transpiring. I think it was pre-existing from what I've seen and talked to those neighbors that have those, you know.
And then I would think we would want to put in here as well that tuck under garage spaces should be excluded from the square footage calculating.
Okay, that's interesting, because
We do-
I love that concept. I love that concept, okay, but.
And I think you're already counting that square footage with the first story of.
I would say it shouldn't be, you know, counted because it's gonna be non-existent for what there is, for what you see, right? Because it's under.
I don't
What do you
know.
think,
that-
Evan, is that?
I'll
I
let
don't know
everyone-
who, I only know one person that's done that, okay, that I'm aware of.
I'm not familiar with that.
So. it
I
can
have that
be,
in my
like,
house.
Recessed either.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Tech garage.
A third, like another stall of a garage underneath your garage. You can
I
go
don't
drive
know, I should
around the
have
back side of the
CUP, but
house.
that- Cause really.
If it's in a hill,
Okay.
you can open
No,
up. the
but that's
garage
what I'm
door
saying,
in the
I didn't-
backyard and drive.
So you'd probably maybe wanna write something about
The garage under a garage.
any accessory, well, any garage space that's under living space would not count towards that 1,000 square feet. Is that what you're
Yeah.
thinking? Okay.
Your living space or under a garage space?
Living space. So you'd have
Either.
living space and then garage, and this garage would be okay, but if you
Oh,
had.
I guys
on
think
the
garage
side-
over garage is what we.
I've seen them both. I've seen them built both ways. And I mean, most people will put a tuck under garage under a garage because there's less exhaust stuff that you have to deal with if it's under the living space, but I have seen it under the living space. And a lot of times those just get converted into like, you know, woodworking
Another room.
shops or something. It's not necessarily for vehicle storage, but
On my desk.
I would think that that would be reasonable to add, that tuck unders do not count towards that. I don't know if we need to spell that out or
To put in a size level, cause what if I wanna put in a 3-stall tuck under on a big house?
I don't care.
Well, I'm just asking, it's an honest question, you know, if I wanna, if I'm looking to say, oh, I'm limited on my garage space, but this allows me to do whatever I want to, because there's nothing that specifies the size that this is allowed to be, that's something may wanna be considered, because I don't know, people do weird things.
So do
Maybe Justin Hope, I'll tell you that.
it. Well, I've seen that before as well, but
Airplane.
not around here, but
See how good the boys
I
vacuum.
think-
So is the reason for that,
They vacuum today.
the reason for that paragraph, getting back to a comment you said in P and Z, I guess what you said, you was concerned about what the neighbors would think. So if I still look at it, if I'm building a brand new house and it's got 4 stalls and it's all nicely done, garage doors, I don't know why anybody would complain if you meet all the setbacks. What's the difference if it's 4 garages or 2 garages? It's that personal choice and it meets all the codes of the setbacks and everything. You could,
Well, what I was looking at is you were putting in, an accessory building came in off of that, and so that's what I was looking at for the.
yeah.
The percentage, and so that was different, that's why I commented that way.
The accessory building then gets dictated by your attached garage space, which seems restrictive, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's because if you're putting in an accessory building, you're wanting more space, and if you've already capped out at 1,000 square feet of a garage, which, what's that? What's a standard 3-car garage?
Well, no, but I'm
Where-
saying, but we've
what?
denied people that have wanted to do that because of the accessory and the square footage that goes along, and so
Yeah.
we've had people come in and we've done that, so we just said no.
I had a 3-stall garage that was 944 square feet. So, I mean,
So if you wanted to add a garden shed, at a 200 square foot garden
can't
shed,
happen.
you're over. You're over
This language would say you would.
this language would
Yeah.
prevent you from adding that garden shed.
Or if you wanna come in for a variance, then you can come in for a variance, and then you'd go with the people that are around to say if it's okay for them.
But see, a garden shed right now doesn't even require a permit. Under 200 square foot garden shed doesn't require a permit,
So,
but it would still then require a variance.
no, because you don't need to have a permit for it, so it wouldn't require a variance if you went bigger than that.
But it's saying like, so say I got a garage that's 1,100 square feet, a little bit bigger than what I had mine, but, you know, and then I've got a 190 square foot shed that I wanna put in that doesn't require a permit, but that puts me over the 1,200 square feet for, that's allowed as accessory structures. I think that's what you're getting at.
Right, so then.
So now you're.
Shows up and
conditional
says you
use
can,
permit,
yeah, or remove your shed.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
you
that's
either
not
have
good.
To have a CUP, you have to have a variance, you don't have to have.
So how hard is it, or does it make sense to go back to using a percentage
No.
versus the 1,000 feet? Or if it's 1,000
Well,
square feet.
it's like this, who's gonna get a tape measure out and go inside the garage and go, okay, well, yeah, but you got prints, but I mean, other.
Right.
That was one thing that just struck me is it felt restrictive. And then knowing that some houses have been granted them and some houses have not been granted, and I don't know the specifics of why they.
But again, it's just whatever is grandfathered in is the way it's gonna be up, and that stuff too, and so.
So future builds, I mean, there's still a lot of houses that could add accessory buildings.
I would think increase cause you got at 1,000 to 1,200, I would think increasing the 1,200 to something higher.
Yes.
Because you're still limiting the amount of structures they can have.
Yes.
And we still have in place of if you are over this size, you're gonna have a building permit. But it would allow that to not happen where you go, okay, you know.
And I think that having the same setbacks or same height restrictions, because that's all built into the accessory building portion of the code would be reasonable as well. So somebody's not coming in and putting, you know, 2-stall, 14-foot doors for, you know, personal use when they're gonna be storing RVs. We don't want that, but if somebody's putting in an additional 2-car garage that's an accessory building and it is going to be over the conditional use permit, it just seems restrictive because then you are losing garden sheds. Potentially you're losing, so. I
That's
would,
why we call it conditional.
yeah, but again, it's how it gets used evenly from one person to the next person. So I would be in favor of increasing those numbers. And if it's going over,
Up to 1,500 square feet.
yeah, I would say up to, what is the language, up to 1,200, and then a conditional use up to like 1,500 would be.
So if we're talking about new build and we're talking about, 1,400 square foot lots, I mean, and adding that garage, it's gonna be all garage.
Well, so this goes to new builds, but a new build could also be someone's existing home adding a
Sure, yeah, they can add a stall, yep.
Yeah, so this restricts those scenarios as well.
So the two figures are there, 1,000 and 1,200, what are you suggesting?
I would say 1,200 and then 1,500, that would give, and then we're still leaving it at the single one accessory unit building available. So. Yeah.
Consensus, is everybody okay with that? Okay, with that. So, go back to R2. Anything else, R1?
Number 15. Yeah.
So the permitted uses, I mentioned this the other day too, about adding 4 family dwellings. Is there a reason why that was not inputted there?
No, and we've already got the 4 that are gonna be going in anyway, that are approved, right? Reckon that, aren't they 4?
The preliminary plan, I believe,
Yes,
is.
there's 4. So I just think that we just didn't put the 4 in there.
Okay,
And that, so we talked about that, I think, last
because
time.
if you go back, further back in 151-083, performance requirements, it does talk about quads in town.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I just think we just.
Okay, editorial.
So do we want to add a 4?
Yeah,
So after 3 family dwellings, we'll also add 4.
fourplex or whatever.
3 family 4.
And then you were gonna look at the definition of apartment and quad, I think, in the definition sections. And then permitted uses, I think quads needed to be either added in with 3 family dwellings or it needed a separate line in the table.
You've got that down already, don't you, Evan?
Yes, we had discussed that last.
Um, Page 2. Under 0.047 standards. The setback for R2 range from, we currently have 25 feet. And it's changed to 35 feet. Which is like a 40% increase. From a cost standpoint, that's gonna cost that the driveway is gonna be longer. The water and sewer line is gonna be longer to the house. The type of sidewalks to the house. Was there a rationale or what was the P and Z background there for 35?
I think we were just doing the standard that there is across the state with that. Okay, is that's what the normal standard was a 35.
Any other feelings one way or the other?
R1 is 25.
R1's 30, R1's 25.
Well, the other thing too is if you're looking at that, you're gonna
Mhm.
probably have more cars that there are gonna be parked on the street or in the driveway. Cause this is an R2 that you wanna have a little bit more space so they're not taking up the street.
Just-
Then it would be uniform whether it's a single family home or a multi-family home. Yeah, cause you're trying to park, you could be looking at a one stall,
Right,
like extra deep garage or, you're parking, so you're parking bumper to nose.
and that's just reality of what you have, because everybody's gonna have at least 2 cars that there are per family, and an R2, that would be 4. Okay, so. And you don't want them on the street for everybody that's parking on the street, that's not a.
No, I just thought it was, when I see the difference, it adds up in cost to a homeowner or developer. That's what I was thinking it'd be. It's not a showstopper, but I think it's added.
Well, I mean, there's a reason with it, because especially if you're looking at doing multi. Doing this with an R2, you're gonna have another one that's gonna be next to it also, so it's not gonna be single by itself. You're gonna have multiple R2s, I think, that are gonna be there.
Yeah.
So, and so.
I kind of have a question with that. I like that. It says front yard space. Obviously, you would have a driveway if it was a house type thing, but I mean, if you're looking at that as an R2, like an apartment building, is that area, that 35-foot front yard setback, is that also something to be used for a parking lot? Or does it have to be physical yard?
You could allow parking, I guess. Maybe the better question is, do you want to have parking in the front?
What do you want it to look like is the
Yeah.
question, okay? Do you want it to be?
I grew up in an area where you have parking in front, parking in back, parking
No,
on sides.
I understand that, but that isn't a place where you end up having the lot sizes and what we have for the way.
When it's
Orinoco
parking in
looks-
back, it's right up against the street. They don't have it 35 feet back. If the parking's behind, it's always right up against, well, right up from the sidewalk. You're looking at maybe 10 feet back, if that. So that's why I'm asking what that 35 feet.
Yeah, I just think for visible, what you wanna have in this community is to have that yard. I think that looks just a whole lot more, with the whole outlook of what Orinoco is. We wanna have that.
It looks nicer with a big front yard. That's the only thing I can see.
And so we like that.
No, I'm just asking, like I said, especially in that R2 for that clarification, because I'm sure if I got the question, somebody else will get the question.
I thought there was something about parking lot back. someplace.
I say you do have a parking section later on that we
Yeah,
can
okay.
kind of readdress that as well.
So another editorial question, and this is. I asked Lori, in one of my comments to her, all the measurements that you see at 35-yard setback. So the question is that the right of way for the property line, or is that the edge of the street? And I never got a real good
Could
answer.
be going from the property line.
Property right of way, property line.
Right, so if you have a platted right of way, you'd be going from your property line to the house. Or if you had a right of way easement, you'd be going from the easement of the right of way to the house.
So in the drawing, we could just put a dimension across that darker gray as being the right of way.
Correct. I think that'd be the easiest way to do
Right,
it.
right. I think that needs to be done on all,
I-
probably
yeah.
a dozen drawings throughout the world. Okay.
Excuse me if it's there and I haven't seen it, but did the size of the right, did the depth of the right of way change at all, or is that still 15 feet?
It's just no dimensions are changed, just identifying this gray area.
Right, I'm just curious, like, they didn't change the size of the right of way, right? That's always just gonna stay 15
But every street is usually 66 feet.
from the center.
Typically.
Okay, that's just standard.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think it's.
For that. I had a question. So on that parking for the R2s, if it's a multifamily, so on that, the use table, there is a shared parking. But it only focuses on B2, so I wonder if we need to add that to that table as well. There's a shared parking and or access, and there's a conditional use permit only for B2 listed on there. So I don't know if we would need to update that as well, if that would be considered a shared parking situation, if it's a parking lot.
So ideally, a shared, or in theory, a shared parking would be if you have, two lots, say there's one or two
Like
businesses,
butting up against each other.
and then they have a parking lot that straddles both lots, so that'd be your shared parking.
Like a strip mall.
Yeah, a strip mall would be an example. If you want to have that situation of where you have two lots that are R2, maybe there's, quads on each one, you have, again, a parking lot straddling both, you could, allow that shared parking, and again, you could put that as a conditional use in that zone.
There's buildings over on Riverwood.
Yeah,
Or Superior Drive, there's a common driveway to two parking lots.
so,
Comes between.
yeah, it's like if you want the shared driveway, that'd be one thing, and then I think the shared parking would be, probably for sure something you'd want maybe as a conditional use in that situation.
There's only a C and B2 though, so if that's the case, we probably need to update that table for having some of those situations with current resident lots.
And where would, I'm trying to imagine where that would happen in current.
I don't know if you necessarily have it in your existing, but say if you had a new development going and they had like a quadplex on each lot and they wanted to share the parking, you could, based on a conditional use permit for shared parking, you could allow that.
So. Even though they're all owned same developer. Yes, oh, never mind. Never mind. Okay. I figured it out in my head.
Yeah, I
my
think,
brain went the same place
Yeah.
yours did originally, so I was thinking of the condos.
yeah, I think the only big issue you'd want when you're reviewing a CUP for that is you want to make sure there'd be some sort of maintenance agreement between the two properties so that if there is obviously stuff that needs to be done in the parking lot, they're in agreement of how they're splitting the costs, who's replacing what. Because obviously if it's shared, they're, both equally involved in that then.
Yeah.
Jason, this is Paul. I'm the one that says Zoom user on there.
Yep. Mhm.
I kind of understand what's being said there, but something like that, something that would only be able to be available within an HOA, isn't it? You would want to, the city don't want to have to structure arrangements between two different property owners.
Absolutely not.
You wouldn't want that shared agreement. That just causes nothing but headaches.
It's the same as you look at like a strip mall, think of like a grocery center with a strip mall, that whole parking lot, that's not city's property. That's
No,
the
we would
development's
ask
property.
them to have an agreement.
So
between themselves,
coming to
but
a
we wouldn't-
residential, it would stay like the HOA would still be the same, so that's why I don't know.
I think the idea is we're not necessarily managing that agreement. It'd be those two entities would be in agreement with each other and
But
they would.
yeah, but like what I'm getting at is like in an HOA, in the residential side of it, you're not really having multiple entities like you would in the commercial who have to come together.
Yeah.
It's all just under one.
Right.
And so I don't know so would that still apply then needing that type of permitted use CUP in that because it's all You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess if you don't want to have a parking lot, straddle lots for a duplex or a quadplex, that would be where you wouldn't want to allow it then as a conditional use. And maybe that's where they would have like a development flex zone type development. Everything's under one owner, or an HOA or whatever, they're taking care of.
I'm not grasping, but we'll move on. I can address it later in my head.
Parking is in 124 later on.
We do need to add quads to the minimum lot size table as well.
Where's that?
That's page 3 of ours.
Section B.
Section B, there's a little table, minimum lot size, there's 2, 3 family dwellings, but there's no quads, so we'll have to add them. So,
Got it.
And this is, R2. Right below that, letter C. Maximum building height shall not exceed 2.5 stories or 30 feet, whichever is less. And B2 today has B2 has 35 feet.
And again, we changed it, we talked about that too.
Yeah, we had
I'm
that
making that
last-
change last time.
Are we gonna make that 35 feet across the board?
I think that's what we decided
Yeah,
last
that's
time,
right.
Paul.
Okay, well, I had another question too, because it shows in R1, it shows a minimum house dwelling size of 1,000 square feet. But now here at R2, it shows the minimum size of 1,240 feet. Why wouldn't we keep that the same versus having two different sizes?
Because R1 is for single and R2 is for multi.
But you can also build a house in R1, or excuse me, you can put a single family dwelling in R2.
You can, but
So why would we allow that to be bigger than the R1?
Paul, what section in R1 and R2 are you specifically looking at?
In R2, under section F,
Okay.
it shows single family dwelling, the minimum finished floor area for the various dwellings shall be as follows: without a basement, 1,240 square feet, and with a basement, 1,040 square feet.
Okay.
And if you go back to R1,
Okay, I see in number 6.
is that where it's at?
Yep. Number 6 there.
It shows 1,000 square feet and 900 square feet, which in R1's gonna definitely allow more space to start with, because you get a bigger lot to start with. So I don't know why we would make that smaller than the R1 available. The minimum size in R2 small or larger than R1. I think they should be brought out the same.
Good catch.
Yeah. I got it noted for you, Paul,
Okay, thank you.
raised or lowered, which one?
Well,
just to be the same.
Okay, but which one are they the same? Are they meeting the R1 standards? They meeting the R2 standards? Which ones?
well, I think maybe make it the R2 standard.
Okay, so R1 will change to the same numbers that are in R2.
I would think so, yes.
Got a really quick, but with R2, we identify single family detached dwellings. That's R1. So why is single family in an R2 section?
Allows for a smaller square footage, smaller lot sizes.
Thank you. In the R2,
Do you think we should separate those? Would that make it easier for people to understand when it's a single dwelling but a smaller lot size? And here's the requirements versus 2 or 3 family or a quad. And here, I wonder if that would read easier than having it all lumped together.
What part are you talking about, Murray?
So I'm looking at like the R2 on page what am I on?
Pages are different than yours, give us numbers.
Yeah, I know, sorry. I'm on page 3 of the R2 with that table. Or wait, nope, that's not it. Mm, Sorry, I just lost it. I was scrolling. Let me find it. I'll bring it back up.
Another one of my concerns is there's no page numbers.
Seriously? I've not even ever noticed that.
There's page.
There is,
The doc.
Pages of each section, because the way it's put together, we'll have page numbers.
Overall.
Oh, I
Well,
could,
it's all gonna go, hopefully we'll get it online and it'll all.
I
it's not
could
page
easily
numbers.
update
Oh,
that for the
yeah.
next workshop. I didn't realize that they were actually not, the entire document was not page numbered.
It is on the computer.
Yeah, if you've got the
Right.
PDF.
The PDF has it, but the document.
57.
Um,
I was in R1, sorry. So the R2 on page 3 of the R2 or 58 on the PDF, it does have F, it's saying a single family dwelling without a basement is 1,240 square feet. With a basement, it's 1,040. And then G has the 2 and above square footage. So I'm good. I'm glad I was looking at R1, but it is separated between the two.
Okay.
Anything else for R2?
And number G, which is page 4 of the R2 medium density section, at the very top, the quads need to be added to G.
Yeah.
And also the change to O. About the 4 inches of dirt sod, another change here.
What number is that one?
Oh,
Oh. So make it the same as R1.
Ryland, what is it that you're referring to under O?
The
Oh,
sodding.
you missed
I
that.
think you missed that part, Paul.
The sod and the
the
tree.
sod or seating.
Here it says
Oh.
for 2 front trees.
Yes, because there's multiple houses.
So, Paul, we had kind of gone through and we had looked at that. And there's gonna be some wording changes that, because it makes it seem like you can only use sod, where we want to allow more options basically for establishing turf. So there's gonna be some wordage change in there, and it's gonna be referenced towards, with the trees, towards new developments, or anything newly built. So it doesn't impact like existing houses or anything like that.
Gotcha. I see. What time did you guys start the meeting?
5:30.
5:30?
Oh, it said 6:30 on the, okay.
That was last week. Cause I was here.
No, it was dated for today, so
No. Bruce trying to mess with your schedule, Paul.
Well, let's clarify the
that's
question.
okay.
Point that Paul brought up on the square footage for the single family dwelling in R2, is that gonna match what's in R1
Yeah,
or will R1 match R2?
We're gonna have R2 and R1.
What is it, 12 foot, is it larger or the smaller?
The R2 standard.
R2 standard.
Yep, the bigger one.
Yeah, and I think the reason that the R1 was actually smaller was because those are gonna be generally like like a full basement and 2 stories, so 900 square foot with 3 stories of 900 square feet is still a big house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have 3 stories.
What's that?
You're not gonna have 3
Well,
stories.
2.5 stories, 2 stories in a basement.
2 stories in a basement, all equals to over to 900 square feet each, it's still a large house.
Yeah.
Right, but you have to remember, this is talking about the first floor. In each of these, it says a single family dwelling, the minimum finished first floor is what it's
Right.
referring to in that
Generally
square footage.
speaking, whatever the first floor is gonna be what the basement and what the footprint is going to be. So you're gonna have, if you have 980 square feet on the main floor, you're gonna have 980 square feet above it and below it.
Correct. Yep.
So that's still a 3,000 square foot house.
I'd argue below might be smaller.
And
But
if you
half
count the
basement,
furnace
yeah.
room and under the stairs.
So Evan,
Get the
experience.
attic going on it between the first.
Yes.
basement.
Section D of the R2. We talk about total garage space shall not exceed 10% of the lot area and in no case exceed 1,000 square feet of gross area. Is that pretty typical for what could be townhouses, quads and or what did you, I should ask Grant and Jim, what was your discussion about that with Lori,
About the garage size.
the garage space per unit?
You know, what we were looking at off of that is, usually it's gonna be 2 stalls. Okay, but you know, sometimes it's hard to get 2 cars and two stalls, cause they're so tight that, you know, but that's what it was, is to have 2 cars to be able to go in.
Okay, I just, not to exceed 10%, is that a
So that's,
fair number?
I mean, looking at the lot sizes, I think that's fair, cause
Yeah,
you're looking at what, the 1,000 or the.
I think it would
1,400.
work. It might come up where people might want more than that though, so. You could get some sort of areas for larger structures. I would say for a lot of communities, accessory structures is gonna be the big thing that people want more space of. It's probably gonna get amended, so. 2 years from now, we might be back looking at this section again, because that seems to be the thing that everyone wants to.
Right,
No,
which
but-
wasn't enough.
Yeah,
It'd be a living document.
yeah.
Real quick with that, with section D, is there any problems if we clean this up? Cause it lists all single family, 2 family, 3 family, 4 family. Can we say all family dwellings because it covers
Any resident.
any of those in
that
there?
might be an easy way to do it, yeah.
Instead of listing, I mean, there's,
And that would add quad too, yeah.
Yeah, just all.
Yeah.
All.
and we'll put all family dwellings. So. Cause it already lists them all, instead of just listing everything.
Yeah, that's good.
You might not want to add that language that way because that would leave it R2 open to more than four units.
All family dwellings listed in section B. That way it covers the 4 that are listed there.
Cut down with paper.
Thanks, Bob.
Anything else, R2? B1?
All right, just a heads up, we got 15 minutes, so you can get through at least B1 here. We'll see.
The side yard had 0 feet on page 2 of B1 in the chart above the diagrams.
What are you seeing?
It's in the building in that chart, the very top.
58
Side yard
is
says 0. Side yard, so you can build right up to the property line.
That's the way it's written.
How does that work with maintenance easement?
Well,
They get back
easement's
there
gonna
for-
be in there anyway.
Huh?
Easement's gonna be in there, cause it's in everything.
On the
There's
side,
not an easement along everybody's property.
I say some of your B1 lots that are existing probably predate any sort of easement requirement. But obviously, whatever you would build within an easement, you have the risk of needing to remove it.
so the diagrams show 5-foot side yard setback.
Well, generally B1 is zero lot lines. It all has to do with, like downtown areas and, you know, you have buildings downtown Rochester, they're right up next to each other. That's not uncommon. And there wouldn't be an easement underneath it.
Yeah.
And it's the same way on their frontage. The zero lot line comes right up to the edge of the right of way where the sidewalk is.
It doesn't.
And your side currently right now in the B1 is 0.
Right, yours 15.
Yeah, in your current ordinance.
Okay.
We currently have several properties in the old downtown area that are at the zero lot line for the on the right of way side. You know, the LEAP, the VFW, Fluffy's building. I think Tasso's building, I believe, is zero lot line on at least one side.
Did we
Correct,
change
stop. His local
the
name.
chart to show 5 feet, not 0, or we take 5 feet off the drawing?
Well, that would, I would think you would maybe add 5 feet to it for future building on them.
Yeah, side yard at 0. 50 feet of abutting
I
residential.
think Paulie's talking about on the side yard on the diagram, it shows 5 feet.
Yeah,
That,
that diagram shows everything is 5.
so do we fix the 5 yard in the matrix or the side yard in the matrix to say 5 yards?
That's for the parking.
Well, build it,
Well, yeah, it's for the parking, but for the building as well.
you can just put that 5.
I'd say 5 in the grid.
Just change that to 5 feet.
Good catch.
So no more 0 foot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Next page, landscaping and the maximum building height, we said that's gonna be 35 right, and right about 53 landscaping, but
Standards, side yard adjustment.
Where?
if you look at 53 landscaping, we'll look at B right above it from the previous. From 52, subdivision B, maximum building height shall not exceed 30 feet, whichever is less, but we're making that 35. Okay. O 53 is landscaping, and there's a lot of shells. First one in subdivision A, open areas of storage shall be landscaped. I guess that's okay. It's the owner's, the number B. The owner shall replace any dead or damaged trees or shrubs with similar species. That seems a little strict.
I think that's pretty common though, because if you've got people, especially, you know, by putting in a, I want to say like a neighborhood, but you know, you put it in these areas where they're gonna put in 4 or 5 trees in at a time, one dies, you want to replace it with something similar, you don't want to replace it with, oh, we've got maples and there's an evergreen and then there's more maples. So I think that's pretty common, at least.
Yeah, if you have some sort of landscape plan tied to a development, ideally you'd want that to remain in effect. I don't know if you necessarily want to have that apply to existing development, maybe that's,
Again, your grandfather.
Yeah, so maybe we could tweak the language to specify landscaping as part of like an approved landscape plan for a CUP would have to replace or maintain that.
Would that fall into the weed inspector's job?
Your list is getting longer and longer and longer.
Well, I have a question back on the permitted uses on that. Cause it only shows single family detached dwellings. Now, so down in that neighborhood, you're not gonna allow an attached garage? So number 7, permitted
Number
uses.
is looking at 151.051. Section A, permitted uses, subsection 7, I just list single family detached dwellings. Which I would look at that and go, that's the same as, you know, if you look at the newer housings, you're matching the style of the houses that are there. They're typically detached from their garages. You're not gonna, you know, the older style historical houses don't have the attached garages. At least not in my experience of any town I've been in.
Well, I guess I'm looking at it this way, if somebody's gonna replace, if somebody decided to replace a house down there, are they gonna put in a detached dwelling, or are they gonna wanna attach a garage?
Is there room on
Detached
those?
would be, it's not attached to another dwelling. You could still have an attached garage.
It says single family detached dwellings is what it says.
Yeah, so detached dwelling means it's not attached to another dwelling. So it'd just be a.
So you can't have two houses
Right,
attached
like
to each
in
other,
B one, you couldn't have two houses attached or
Right.
three houses.
like a townhome
Or
or
a flex.
duplex.
Or a
Gotcha.
business.
Okay. Is there some language that we could clarify that? So it wouldn't be,
I think
so
it's
it
just
wouldn't
us,
be duplexes and such down there.
I think that's just us understanding the terminology of the planning and zoning. I think it does make sense once you understand that point.
I guess
Okay, but that did
not to
clarify.
allow duplexes or anything in B one.
Don't we have ADU stuff in here?
You do.
Maybe not in B one.
I don't remember. if it's in
Some
B1.
you do in B one. I only bring this up, so if you had maybe over Greener's Pub, they wanted to build an apartment above that, would that be something you'd want downtown?
Ordinances don't allow residential about businesses.
ADUs are allowed as permanent
Like it's
use
our
in
current
B1, R1 and R2 districts and accessory.
But do you want to go forward?
I don't think that's gonna that will highly get taken advantage
I
of.
don't think we have that.
151.130, the start is the start of the ADU section, which allows it in B1, R1 and R2 districts. An
Oh,
accessory to a single family home. So it does not include businesses.
Well, most of your B1 across the country or across Olmsted County, you take these older structures in the downtown areas. It's not unusual for them to have an apartment above it. Go to Fluffy's building. That's what it was to start with, and it has two apartments on top, or it did, but
That's grandfather.
it is
right.
grandfathered, and I think that the county has it recorded as residential as well.
But I'm just saying that's a part looking at the historic
Yeah.
downtown area, which is a little bit different than what there'd be for doing new businesses or whatever that'll
I
be coming
imagine
in.
that would be conditional to a CUP if it was attached to a business as well, so. Now I lost my space. Where were we at?
Moving on.
okay.
151.056 outside display. To me, that was, in my opinion, I think it was project scope crease, I don't think we should, unless there's some particular reasons why it's here, I would just I would remove that section and just keep our sign ordinance as it is, and we'll deal with it sometime later.
Was this smaller than our current sign ordinance?
I didn't look, to me, just didn't fit into.
It's, well, 056 isn't necessarily referring to the sign ordinance. That's referring to how much stuff you would just do as like a sidewalk display out front.
Yeah.
Yeah, like vending machines, cabinets such as beverages, ice,
Rolling carts,
propane, yeah, from heights.
Yeah, so if you,
Or like a sidewalk bistro type thing.
That's right. That's the way it was. I remember that being explained that
Like the
way.
business aspect.
Yeah, so if they wanna bring a rolling coat rack out, they could, that would be an outside display.
Is this part suspended during gold rush? I mean, honestly, like if you get a business down there and I wanna just line the front of my business with a, you know, say you got a thrift shop type thing.
Yep, so how we do that right now with Gold Rush is they just get a gathering permit and they become a vendor inside the show. You just need a gathering permit, like for a garage sale or if you had a business and you wanted to bring a clothing rack out. right?
It's like what Jan does. In the back. of
I just wanted to, that was my first thought, was to make sure that's.
They're paying a fee to go.
They pay the city the gathering permit fee, right?
Somebody would ask it, I know, so I just figured I'd ask it now, because.
We actually can't charge them for being on their own
Should go to
property,
Gold
Gold
Rush.
Rush cannot,
Yeah.
Ran a
but the
lot.
city can.
Well, so I'm saying, maybe they don't wanna
The city
go,
has something.
you know, if there's space between the Gold Rush Street thing and the building. And they wanna put stuff out in front of their building and draw it, I mean, are you suspending that for Gold Rush weekend, or they have to just get a gathering like, I don't.
We haven't seen it happen.
They'd be
yet.
covered under the festival.
I mean,
Fluffy actually used to do that when there was still like the antiques downstairs and he would open up or bring things outside.
We digress here.
Right,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But no, I'm saying, but it's a question then to be covered under that, cause somebody's gonna ask that, we do have those shops along the street there. Where, you know, especially I know there's one next to Irv's place that's for sale, that's a little bit back where. I wanna open up a shop in there and then I wanna be able to, or even. With the gentleman that's across the street here, he wants to bring a bunch of his stuff out from his showroom floor and set it out in front of his business. That kind of falls under that. You know, how,
I just think
What
it's
do
hard
we
for
need
us
to-
to regulate and tell a business what they can and can't do on their own property. Like
That-
during a
that's what-
festival.
But that doesn't matter, this doesn't take into account festival, that's what I'm saying, like, this is all year round, so you have to either say, okay, we're just gonna suspend it, not worry about it. Or we're gonna have them
I see.
get a permit.
how have we handled garage sales in the past?
Yeah.
Cause I believe you have to have a permit,
Gathering permit.
a gathering permit, whether you're 1 mile from the show or the edge of town. So I would look at it that way. If they don't fit this, they need a gathering permit.
Perfect. I just wanna make sure that we're all understanding and you're understanding.
That makes sense to me.
People park cars on their lawn.
People park cars, they have to have a gathering permit, yeah. Alright,
Just wanna make sure we're
yeah.
out there, so.
Okay,
Handle it the same way the garage sales are handled.
I'm gonna put a vending machine out in my front yard.
Ah,
Anything else in this section before we call it a day here?
Can I just wanted to add a comment, just something for people to like think about or chaw on until we meet again. Just for, we're talking about just going back, just for general understanding, I just want to say a little something for Kane and the utility. I know that Ryland has kind of talked to this before too, but just so that everybody kind of has some knowledge or wants to learn more about connections, right? And why we're talking about connections and growth. And it also does apply to commercial business, right? So not only would we want growth or we get those connections through residential development, we get those connections and we get multiple connections in the case of just even a single commercial business. How we currently operate is any commercial business that is on our utility starts out at a minimum of 2 ERUs. So that's 2 houses. Okay, they start at that. Based on their first 6 months of usage, we determine how much water they're using, adjust their ERU rate accordingly. So we have some businesses in town that are paying 7 ERUs. That's 7 homes. We have some that are paying 10. We have a couple that are paying 20 or more, just based on the usage. So just to keep in mind, I know we don't like to have the discussion that connections and the utility and stuff are driving some of our decisions, but it is a fact that we have to deal with. It's not going away. We can't take it back. But if we thoughtfully kind of think about all of those ways that we can meet those needs, not just through residential, but also through commercial, just something just to think about.
Thanks.
Mhm.
thank you. All right.
Last thing here before we end, and this, Marie and Paul, you listen online, I wanna try to set up another one here, the 12th of March, that's the second Thursday. Does that day work for everybody? It was the old P and Z day. it's opened up. I'd like to keep this rolling and not get a big gap, cause I don't know when else at this point.
We'll be around.
Yeah, I'll make it work.
5:30 work, or should we shoot for 6:30? 5:30? 5:30?
I don't care which it is. I just need to know ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Conflict, I can think I can resolve it.
I'm supposed to be packing to leave for Arizona that night, so y'all better make it quick that night.
Yeah, 5:30.
All right, 5:30.
Marie, does that work for you? Or at least if we have it online too, you can be available?
I'm gonna have to call in again, which is fine.
Do
The phone works great, Marie.
Okay, you can hear me good.
Oh, yeah, it's very clear. Thank
Okay,
you.
so we'll put one in for the 12th of March there at 5:30 for another zoning workshop, so we can continue starting with B2.
The 12th at 5:30.
Correct.
Okay.
And before we leave, is there any historic on that B3? Like what was in there prior to it now it being proposed for B2? Because I was looking through that. I couldn't find anything. What was in that old B3? Like what was
Under
considered
B1.
there? If you could send any of that, that would be helpful.
It's under B1.
B2 now.
B1 is now B3 or B3 is B1?
So it just has historic on there. It's neighborhood, historic central business.
She's asking about the zone B3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a B3 zone right behind People's Co-op, and so in our new packet, there's nothing on B3 where they're trying to rezone to 2, but I just want to see what it was before and if anything is changing to B2 and what the difference is.
Yeah, I'll look for something to see what it was.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to leave for next week's discussion, for those that haven't seen, this is a copy of our current cost reimbursement and security agreement. It's just a continuation of our escrow, but it kind of lays out what it does for the developer in the city.
You have an extra one.
I think this one we have.
You have these on it.
Right.
That's our template that was approved by council to use as these developments come in to get the ball going. So that's what we kind of sent out to developers as the first collection.
We talked about last time.
For the bus company.
Glenn's Motor Co.
So what do you want to highlight on this? You just want us to review?
Oh,
it
the
and-
comparison, just, I'm pushing for this versus the escrow.
Oh, okay. Boom.
And I think this is more comprehensive. Covers a lot of issues, so just
Yeah.
FYI. and-
Jason, nothing that week, if this is old.
We all set,
The
everybody?
fifth is P and Z.
Good go?
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks, Paul.
Good to know.
Thank you.